Welcome back, everyone, to Mighty Habits. Today, we're diving into something I think pretty fascinating.
Oh, I agree.
It's this book, Don't Believe Everything You Think,
Hmm.
by Joseph Nguyen.
Hmm.
And it's really all about kind of recognizing the power of our own thoughts
Right.
and how sometimes those thoughts, those automatic thoughts,
Yeah.
can lead us down a rabbit hole of kind of like stress and anxiety and all the things we
Yeah.
don't want. And so I'm excited to kind of explore some of the key takeaways, maybe some tools, and we'll see what we can learn.
Yeah. That sounds fantastic. I think, I'm really excited to talk about some of the tools that Nguyen talks about in the book. Like, he has this thing, it's called a thoughtometer.
Oh,
And it really is about kind of taking a pause when you have these thoughts that are causing you stress or anxiety and kind of stopping for a second. Like, how true is this thought, really?
yeah.
And it's not about, pretending that things are perfect or anything like that. It's really just about sort of checking in with ourselves.
Checking in.
Yeah. And saying, like, is this something I need to be worried about, or is this just, a thought that's passing through? And
All
I
right.
think, when we start to realize that our thoughts are not always facts, that they're just kind of these mental events that are happening, it can really give us a lot of freedom.
Takes the power away.
Takes the power away,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then, another thing that Nguyen talks about in the book that I think is really interesting are these three principles: universal mind, consciousness, and thought.
Okay.
So the universal mind is kind of like this, you know, this vast ocean of pure potential, like a boundless source of creativity and energy. And then consciousness is like a wave rising from that ocean. It's how we experience the world through our individual senses and perceptions.
Okay.
And then thought is like the ripples on that wave. It's
Yeah.
constantly forming and changing, shaped by our unique perspectives and experiences.
Okay.
And so I think it's really helpful to see it visually like that because, our thoughts are just one way of interpreting this vast ocean of experience, but they're not necessarily the absolute truth.
Right. Yeah.
They're just one perspective.
Oh, okay. I like that. It's like if, you were to put on a pair of glasses with a particular tint, right?
Yeah,
Everything you see is colored by that lens, even though the world itself hasn't actually changed.
exactly. Exactly. And I think that, creating space for ourselves is one of the best things that we can do to really see those thoughts more clearly.
Okay, so how do we create space? Like, what does that look like?
Well, it could be as simple as just taking 5 minutes in the morning to just sit and be still,
Right.
before you start your day.
Huh.
Or maybe it's taking a break from technology for an hour in the evening,
Right.
or even going for a walk in nature. Just anything that allows you to kind of disconnect
Yeah.
from the busyness of your mind and just be present in the moment.
Right. Okay. So it's like almost like a mental detox in a way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, get caught up in this idea that we need to be productive all the time. And, we're constantly going, 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 and we forget to just take a break and just be.
Yeah.
And I think when we do that, it really allows our intuition to come through more clearly.
Oh, intuition. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's Ninjin's take on intuition?
He describes it as kind of this inner compass, this
Yeah.
inner guidance system that's always available to us.
Right.
But the problem is, we often get so caught up in the noise of our own minds that we don't hear it.
Like a quiet voice.
Yeah, it's a quiet voice.
Mhm.
And so creating that space that we were just talking about, that can really help to amplify that voice.
Oh, okay. Okay. So how do you know if it's intuition and not like, I don't know, like wishful thinking?
Right, right.
Right.
Well, I think with intuition, it often feels very calm and clear, even if the message itself is challenging.
Yeah.
Whereas fear-based thoughts, they tend to be accompanied by a lot of anxiety and doubt.
Like a little knot in your stomach. Yeah.
Exactly,
Ow.
exactly.
Ow.
And, another thing that Nguyen talks about is self-love. And I know that can be kind of a buzzword these days, but
Yeah.
he really emphasizes the importance of unconditional self-love. It's about embracing our imperfections, celebrating our strengths, and treating ourselves with compassion even when we make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because, we're often our own worst critics.
Yeah.
And we would never talk to a friend the way we talk to ourselves sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And so, really cultivating that self-compassion, I think, is essential for living a happy and fulfilling life.
I agree. I agree. That makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about kind of taming the thought monsters,
Yeah.
those three principles. We talked about creating space, self-love. What about goals? What does he say about goals?
So he talks about setting goals, but not in the traditional sense,
Yeah.
where it's like, I need to achieve this or I need to have that.
Right.
He encourages us to set goals from a place of inspiration and alignment with our true selves.
Okay.
So it's not about, chasing after external validation or trying to meet other people's expectations.
Oh, I see.
It's really about tuning into what genuinely lights us up, what
Yeah.
brings us joy, and then setting goals that support that.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Um, I like that. It's more like following your bliss,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, how do we do that? I mean, how do we know what genuinely lights us up?
I think it takes some introspection, some time to really connect with ourselves and figure out what our values are, what our passions are.
Okay.
And I think that, again, goes back to creating that space, because when we're constantly busy and distracted, it's hard to hear that inner voice.
Yeah.
It's hard to connect with our true selves.
Yeah. So creating space, like almost everything comes back to that.
It's like the foundation.
The foundation. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I've been trying to incorporate some mindfulness practices into my own life. I've been doing a little bit of meditation in the mornings,
That's wonderful.
just 5 or 10 minutes, but even that, like small amount of time, it really makes a difference.
I agree. I agree. And, I think it's really about consistency, not necessarily about the amount of time.
Right.
Even 5 minutes a day can make a huge difference.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's like building a muscle.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
The more you do it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
So, but even with those practices, like sometimes those negative thoughts still creep in.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do we do then? Like, how do we deal with those negative thoughts when they show up?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Nguyen talks about the power of reframing,
Okay.
which is basically, taking that negative thought and looking at it from a different perspective.
Okay.
Instead of saying, I can't do this, maybe you say, I'm learning how to do this, or
Mhm.
I'm going to try my best. It's about shifting your perspective and choosing a more empowering way to interpret the situation.
Right. So it's not about pretending everything's perfect,
Right.
but just trying to look at it in a more positive light.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's a practice.
Right.
It's something that you have to work at, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
It becomes a habit. Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that. Cool. So, this is all really interesting. It sounds like don't believe everything you think is really about kind of like creating a more fulfilling life, a more peaceful life.
Absolutely. It's about taking control of your own mind, and not letting your thoughts control you.
Yeah. So it's a journey, right?
It's a journey for sure. It's not a destination, There's no point where you arrive and you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm enlightened now.
Right, right. It's a lifelong process.
It's a lifelong process. Exactly.
Yeah, cool. So one thing I'm curious about is those aha moments that he talks about.
Yeah.
Those moments of like sudden insight.
Mhm.
Have you ever experienced those?
Oh, absolutely. And I think they often come when we least expect them. Like, maybe you're taking a shower, you're going for a walk, and suddenly, like, the solution to a problem just pops into your head.
Yeah.
And I think that's because, when we're not actively trying to think about something, when we're just kind of relaxed and open,
Right.
that's when our intuition can really come through.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like your mind is not in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. I like that. So, what about this idea of non-thinking that he talks about? How can you not think? Like, what does that even mean?
Right. Well, it's not about, stopping your thoughts completely because that's pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
But it's more about shifting from a state of constant mental activity
Right.
to a state of presence and awareness.
Okay.
So it's about noticing your thoughts without getting caught up in them.
So it's like almost like watching them go by like clouds in the sky or something
Yeah.
like that.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like you're sitting on the bank of a river and you're watching the thoughts flow by, but you're not jumping in the river and getting swept away.
Right, right. You're not getting attached to them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So, any tips for how to cultivate that state of non-thinking?
Well, meditation is one way, but it doesn't have to be formal meditation.
Okay.
It could be as simple as just taking a few deep breaths and focusing on your breath.
Right.
Or maybe going for a walk in nature and just really paying attention to the sights and sounds around you.
Yeah.
Just anything that helps you to bring your attention to the present moment.
The present moment, right?
Yeah.
That's like the key.
Yeah, that's the key.
Okay. Cool. So, this is great. I feel like we're getting a really good overview of some of the key concepts in Don't Believe Everything You Think.
Yeah,
And I'm excited to dive deeper into some of these topics in our next segment.
me too.
But for now, I think we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Sounds great. All right. So, we were talking about non-thinking and kind of like, how do you even do that?
Yeah, that seems impossible, right? Like, how do you not think?
Exactly. And it's not really about not thinking at all. It's more about like becoming aware of the thoughts
Right.
and kind of choosing which ones you want to engage with, instead of just getting swept away by every single thought that pops into your head.
Oh, okay. So it's more about like being selective, you know,
Yeah,
like choosing the thoughts that serve you and
exactly.
letting go of the ones that don't.
Yeah, it's like, if you have a garden, you don't just let any plant grow there,
Right.
right? You choose the plants that you want, the ones that are going to flourish in that environment.
Yeah, yeah. You cultivate the garden.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with your mind. You can cultivate the thoughts that you want to grow.
Okay, I like that analogy. So, we were talking about technology earlier
Hmm.
and how it can be kind of a distraction.
Yeah.
What are some tips for, managing that distraction and being more present?
I think one of the biggest things is just being aware of how much time you're spending on technology,
Yeah.
A lot of us are on our phones or our computers for hours every day, and
Yeah.
we don't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a mindless scroll, you just get sucked in.
Exactly. And so one thing you can do is just start tracking your screen time and just
Yeah.
see, how much time are you actually spending on these devices. And then from there, you can start setting some limits.
Okay. So it's about being more intentional,
Yes,
and instead of just letting technology control you.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, cool. And then once you've kind of like set those limits, what are some things you can do to like fill that time with more like mindful activities?
Yeah, well, I think one of the best things is just spending time in nature,
Okay.
you know, going for a walk in the park or hiking in the woods or even just sitting in your backyard and listening to the birds.
Right, right. Just being present in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about gratitude? We were talking about that earlier. How can gratitude help us to be more present?
Well, I think gratitude is all about focusing on the good things in your life, even
Uh,
the small things.
yeah.
And when you do that, it really shifts your perspective,
Yeah.
It helps you to appreciate the present moment more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like instead of focusing on what you don't have,
Right.
you're focusing on what you do have.
Exactly. And even if things are tough, there's always something to be grateful for.
Well, always. Yeah.
It could be as simple as having a roof over your head or food on the table or just the fact that you're alive.
Right, right. Yeah. It's about shifting your perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, what about this idea that we're all energetic beings? Like, what does that even mean?
So, everything in the universe is made up of energy, right?
Okay.
And we, as human beings, are no exception. We have an energy field around us and we're constantly emitting and receiving energy.
Oh, okay. So it's like we're all kind of like walking magnets in a way?
Yeah, kind of like that. And the energy that we emit attracts similar energy.
Okay. So if you're emitting positive energy,
Yeah.
you're more likely to attract positive experiences.
Exactly. And if you're emitting negative energy, you're more likely to attract negative experiences.
Oh, okay. So it's like we have a choice in every moment,
Yeah,
what kind of energy we want to put out there.
exactly. And it's not always easy to stay positive, especially when things are tough.
Right?
But I think it's really important to try because the more positive energy you put out there, the more you'll get back.
It's like a boomerang.
Yeah,
What you put out comes back to you.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, cool. So, um, what are some tips for cultivating positive energy?
Well, I think one of the best things is just to be mindful of your thoughts.
Right.
If you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, it's going to affect your energy.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so try to focus on the good things in your life, the
Right.
things you're grateful for, and also be mindful of the words you use. If you're constantly complaining or criticizing, it's going to lower your energy.
Right.
So try to use positive and uplifting language.
Yeah. And what about actions? Like, does that affect our energy too?
Oh, absolutely. If you're constantly doing things that drain your energy, like staying up late or eating unhealthy food or surrounding yourself with negative people, it's going to have an impact.
Yeah. Right.
So try to do things that nourish your soul,
Okay.
like spending time in nature or listening to music or spending time with loved ones.
Right. Right. Things that bring you joy.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. So, we were talking about forgiveness earlier
Yeah.
and how that's kind of a gift we give ourselves,
Right.
but it can be really hard,
Mm.
especially when someone has really hurt you.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the hardest things we can do as human beings,
Yeah.
but it's also one of the most liberating.
Okay. So, how do we even begin to forgive someone who has hurt us deeply?
Well, I think the first step is just to acknowledge the pain.
Okay.
Don't try to suppress it or pretend it's not there.
Right.
Just allow yourself to feel it.
Okay. And then what?
And then start to shift your focus from blame to understanding.
Okay.
Try to see the situation from the other person's perspective.
So it's not about condoning their actions,
Right.
but just trying to understand why they did what they did.
Exactly. Because often when people hurt us, it's not because they're bad people,
Right.
but because they're hurting themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Hurt people, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So we acknowledge the pain, we try to understand the other person's perspective, and then what?
And then we make a conscious choice to forgive.
Okay. And how do we do that? Like, what does that look like?
It could be as simple as saying to yourself, I forgive you.
Okay.
Or it could be writing a letter to the person, even if you don't send it.
Okay.
Or it could be doing some kind of ritual, like releasing a balloon or lighting a candle.
Right, right. Something symbolic.
Exactly. The important thing is that you're making a conscious choice to let go of the anger and resentment.
Okay. And that doesn't happen overnight, right?
No, it's a process. And it might take time, and you might have to forgive the person multiple times.
Right.
But the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Okay. So it's like anything else, it's a practice.
Exactly.
Cool. So we were talking about purpose earlier.
Yeah.
And how everyone has a unique purpose.
Right.
But how do you figure out what your purpose is?
Well, I think it starts with paying attention to what lights you up.
Okay.
What are you passionate about?
Yeah.
What do you enjoy doing?
Yes.
What makes you feel alive?
Okay.
And then think about how you can use your unique gifts and talents to serve others.
Okay, so it's not just about what you enjoy doing,
Right.
but also about how you can use that to make a difference in the world.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'm like finding that intersection between your passion
Yes.
and your purpose.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Cool. I like that. What about those moments when you feel lost? Like you don't know what your purpose is, or you're feeling uncertain about the future.
Yeah.
What does Nguyen say about that?
Well, he says that those moments are actually really important
Okay.
because they're an opportunity to connect with your intuition.
Oh, okay.
When you're feeling lost, it's a sign that you need to pause and listen to that inner voice.
So it's not a bad thing to feel lost?
No, not at all. It's just a sign that you're on the verge of a breakthrough.
Okay.
It's like you're at a crossroads and you need to choose a new direction.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a redirection.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, cool. So, this is all really inspiring. It's
Yeah.
like Nguyen is giving us a roadmap for how to create a more fulfilling life.
Absolutely. It's a journey, but it's a journey worth taking.
Yeah, I agree. And it starts with, not believing everything you think.
Exactly.
So, for those of you who are listening, what are some of the key takeaways that you're getting from this conversation?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what's resonating with you.
Share your thoughts in the comments below, or connect with us on social media. We always love hearing from you.
Absolutely.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone. We're all in this together.
We are.
So for now, I think we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Sounds good. It's interesting because we've been talking about all these different concepts and tools, but I think what really ties it all together is this idea of self-awareness,
Yeah, like becoming more aware of our thoughts, our feelings, our patterns.
Exactly. And then from that place of awareness, we can start to make conscious choices that align with our values and our goals.
It's like we're taking back control of our lives rather than letting our circumstances or our automatic reactions dictate how we feel and how we behave.
Exactly. It's about becoming the conscious creators of our own reality. And speaking of creation, one of the most inspiring ideas that Nguyen explores is the concept of living a purpose-driven life. This idea that we all have a unique purpose, a special gift to share with the world.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people struggle with, right? Like, what is my purpose? What am I here to do?
Absolutely. It's a big question. And Nguyen suggests that our purpose isn't something that's fixed or predetermined, but rather something that unfolds over time as we follow our passions, listen to our intuition, and pay attention to those things that light us up and bring us joy.
So it's not like we have to have it all figured out right now, but rather we can kind of discover our purpose along the way.
Exactly. It's a journey of exploration and discovery. And sometimes those discoveries come in the most unexpected ways. We might stumble upon our purpose through a hobby, a relationship, a challenge, or even a failure.
It's like life is kind of nudging us along, giving us clues and opportunities to discover who we really are and what we're meant to do.
Exactly. And I think the key is to be open to those nudges, to those synchronicities, those moments where things seem to line up in a way that feels meaningful and purposeful.
It's like the universe is conspiring to support us in finding our purpose and living a more fulfilling life.
I love that. And I think the more we trust in that process, the more we surrender to the unknown, the more those synchronicities will appear in our lives.
So it's about letting go of the need to control everything, trusting that we're being guided, and having faith that the path will unfold before us.
Exactly. It's about surrendering to the flow of life and trusting that we're exactly where we're meant to be in this moment. And speaking of the present moment, I think one of the most important takeaways from Don't Believe Everything You Think is this emphasis on embracing the here and now. Letting go of the worries of the past and the anxieties of the future, and choosing to focus on the beauty, the joy, and the wonder that's available to us in this very moment.
It's like hitting the pause button on our busy minds and just allowing ourselves to be fully present in the experience of life as it's happening.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that we ignore our goals or stop planning for the future. It simply means that we choose to focus our energy on the present moment, knowing that this is the only moment we have any real control over.
It's about shifting our attention from what's missing to what's present, from what we don't have to what we do have, and recognizing that we already have everything we need to be happy right now.
I love that. And when we cultivate that present moment awareness, we naturally release stress, anxiety, and worry. We open ourselves up to greater peace, joy, and fulfillment.
It's like we're stepping off the hamster wheel of our minds and into a state of being, of presence, of simply being here now.
Exactly. And from that state of being, we can create, we can connect, we can love, we can experience life more fully.
This has been such an incredibly insightful and inspiring conversation. We've covered so much ground. Taming the thought monster, embracing our fears, cultivating self-love, living from the heart, practicing forgiveness, discovering our purpose, embracing the present moment, and so much more. I feel like we've only just begun to explore the depths of wisdom that Don't Believe Everything You Think has to offer.
It really is a book that keeps giving. It offers so much wisdom and practical guidance for anyone seeking a more peaceful, joyful, and fulfilling life.
Absolutely. And for anyone who's feeling inspired to delve deeper into these concepts, I highly recommend checking out Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Nguyen. It's a truly transformative read. So to wrap things up, I want to invite you all to consider this. If you could choose one thought to stop believing, one belief that has been holding you back, what would it be? And imagine replacing it with its opposite. What if, for just one day, you fully embrace that new, empowering belief? How might that change your actions, your interactions, and your experience of the day?
Such a powerful question to reflect on. Thank you for bringing that to light.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Don't Believe Everything You Think. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to Mighty Habits for more inspiring deep dives into fascinating topics. And remember, don't believe everything you think. Keep those mighty habits going, everyone.